Hey everyone! First I want to say that this video was really a lot of fun to make, because I will be unboxing 3 Fate Go ladies. But to waste no more time, all I can say is enjoy.
Katsushika Hokusai.
So how much does it cost to buy Hokusai? Given the fact that I actually don't own her in Fate Go, I couldn't tell you. Therefore, I had to do the next best thing, since it's probably cheaper to buy this figure than to pull for her. And in case you don't know who this is, let me introduce you to Katsushika Hokusai. And now, let me introduce you to his daughter. Now I'm not sure if you knew who was who, but it explains it in the game. Now getting to this review, let's actually start with the boxing. Now the box is basically a gold painted box with Hokusai's famous wave art piece printed on it. And it uses that trendy front opening box, which is different from a lot of the older top opening boxes. The interior packaging is actually quite interesting. It's like a 50-50 split, where Hokusai is packaged as a typical figure, and the wave is also packaged like a figure. And I know there's a lot of controversy around the clear plastic stand that is meant to hold up the wave, but I don't believe this stand was actually part of the original design. Like there is no slot for it in the molding of the original packaging. Rather, it's taped inside of a bag along the inside of the packaging. And on top of that, it comes with its own page of instructions, which is not part of the main assembly instructions. It's rather weird because when I was looking at the instructions, I couldn't find the stand anywhere. And with it being in a clear plastic bag, it took me a few minutes to actually find it. As for putting her together, it's pretty straightforward for the most part, with only minor difficulties. Her foot pegs were super easy to get in, and for those that are interested, she is able to stand on her own without the base. The brush was really easy to get in, but the birds on the brush were a bit annoying. The only real issue that I had with her was putting in the wave. One of the metal pegs was bent by a millimeter, preventing the wave from popping into place. To fix this, I lightly filed the hole of the bent peg, and it popped right in. And Hokusai wasn't that hard to get in. I was just afraid that I was going to break the wave if I pushed too hard. As for her sculpt, I don't know if I bought this figure for how amazing the sculpt is, or the fact that she has the best cleavage out of all the figures that I own. And maybe that's just a testament on how good her design is, because the rest of her complicated sculpt is amazing. There's a lot going on with all the ruffles and the bows of the dress, but the wave itself really steals the show with its complexity. My only nitpick is her right hand fingers. Some of the fingers look disproportionate. And as for the support stand that came with it, mine doesn't even touch the wave yet. It's about 4 millimeters too short. Maybe the wave sags over time, or if the figure's exposed to humidity or higher heat, that could cause the sagging. But I'm still debating on whether or not I'll use the support stand, at least until I start noticing it sagging. The paint is great, nothing that blows my mind, but it suits the figure. The paint and coloring of the wave is awesome. The only issue that I have with the paint is that there's 1 or 2 spots where the lines bleed, and it's only noticeable if you really look closely for it. The pose is good. I think it would be a bit boring if the figure was just standing alone, but the wave in the background, it actually suits the figure really well. But then again, the pose matches the character artwork you see here. So if I have to reevaluate, the pose is perfect since it matches the iconic art piece. Now the base is just a generic black base with some glitter. And if you were to consider the wave as part of the base, the wave is 10 out of 10 in my books. Words can't describe how much I love this wave. Overall, I was originally scared of getting this figure. When I first started seeing some of the bad quality photos coming out of her, because some of the folks got her before me, I was even more scared. But now that I have her, she's probably one of my most favorite figures that I've gotten this year. And for me, she's an easy 10 out of 10 despite her flaws. And for those that are unfamiliar with my unboxings, my rating score means absolutely nothing. It's just my personal opinion. And I would be surprised if everyone felt the same about every figure that I review. So if you thought this figure was a 1 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, that is awesome. I would love to hear why you would rate it differently. Now with all that out of the way, all I get to do now is to wait for her swimsuit version of her to arrive at my doorstep. Anyway, on to the next box. Now look at the size of this box. I'm not sure if they sent me a small child or if I bought a figure big enough to merit the size of this box. Like, let's look at scenario A. Place large box in front of 1-to-1 scale anime child, trick them into climbing in, close box and ship to customer. Seems plausible. As for scenario B, take a box of a 1/7 scale figure, find the biggest box you can find, put smaller box in bigger box, and fill it up with a substance that makes you sleep better at night, hoping that the smaller box won't get crushed when stuffed in an enclosed space with many other boxes. And well, given that Amazon or Crunchyroll didn't pack this box, because let's face it, scenario B sounds like something that Amazon or Crunchyroll would do, I'm starting to think that this box isn't scenario B. Therefore, to conclude, there's definitely a 1-to-1 scale anime child in this box. But let's not waste any more time, here's a closer look at the figure. Let me introduce you to the alter ego version of Okita Souji. This figure was manufactured by Good Smile Company, and this figure came in the biggest box that I've seen for a single 1/7 scale anime figure come in. But the actual figure box itself is really clean, and the packaging made it really easy to access the figure, so that's a plus. Now, putting her together was a bit involved, since it involved you taking off her head and arm. But once you get a feel for it, it's actually quite smart. I've had plenty of figures where I had to wedge parts between hair strands, where I felt that I was gonna break something, and while it was scary taking her apart at first, I didn't sweat it when I had to put her back together. As for the sculpt, oh my god. I don't know why, but Fate figures really smash it out of the park. It's perfect, way better than what I was expecting. Like the jacket, the hair, the leg armor. Whoever designed this figure really needs to be given an extra bonus. And the paint is super clean. I see no glaring flaws with it. I really love the bronze trim of the black coat. It suits it so well. And the hair also has shading, which also makes it feel more dimensional. As for the pose, it's one of the most badass poses I've seen in a figure. Hands down, they nailed it. And with the long sword, the long hair, and the long black cloak, it kind of reminds me of a female Sephiroth. So getting onto the base, and what do I see? A generic black what the fuck. I don't even know how to rate this. I trash generic black bases in my videos all the time. And what do? They take a generic black base and make it something cool. It's like they were anticipating me trashing it, and then they tweaked it in a way that my mind couldn't comprehend. Because this is one of the best generic black bases I could ever dream of. So overall, you don't have to be a figure collector to appreciate this figure. This is probably the best looking Fate figure that I own at the moment. Well, maybe. I'm not sure if Ren's gonna kill me in my sleep for making that comment, but this figure is really amazing. So in my personal opinion, she's a perfect 10 out of 10. As for my next segment, I'm going to show you how to transform this Ren figure into an Ereshkigal figure only using a paintbrush and some generic yellow paint. It's super easy and anyone can do it. First, you take your paintbrush and dip it in the yellow paint. Then, you apply. Now you're going to need a little bit of time to let the paint dry, but when it does, you're going to get something that looks like this. For those that don't know who this is the goddess of the underworld, Ereshkigal, the sister of Ishtar. She uses the body of Ren Tosaka to manifest her physical form, or something like that. Now this figure was made by Max Factory, and before you say it, my Ishtar figure was made by Furuyu, and yes, there's a Furuyu figure for Ereshkigal. But I didn't get it, because I prefer the face of the Max Factory figure more. But jumping into the box is pretty standard. It's beautifully painted cardboard with shiny metallic paint on the trim and the text, and the interior is packaged pretty good, nothing to complain about. Now I have mixed feelings about putting her together. Everything but the cape went on super easy. Now the cape I had a problem putting the peg in. It just wouldn't go in any further, so there's a bit of a gap. Most angles you don't actually see the peg, but with it not fully in, it made it a little bit difficult to get the head on. The sculpt, however, I think it's good. The only parts that I have issues with is the fur around the cape. The edges seem great, but the surface is very flat where I was expecting a bit more texture to match the edges. Her other figures handle this part way better. And then her hair seems gloopy. I love that the hair is in strands, but they seem glooped together. And this is probably because that they're painted a base color. If there was proper shading, I think it would make the hair seem less gloopy and a bit more dimensional. But that brings me to the paint. I actually like a lot of the coloring of this figure. The paint is pretty flat, meaning there's not a lot of shading, but a lot of the paint has a metallic shimmer to it. So you really need some direct light on the figure to make it have that dimensional feel. For example, I know a lot of people are not impressed with the flat gold paint. But to give it that stereotypical gold shimmer, you really need to shine light on it so it can cast those highlights and shadows that give it that gold shine. And going back to the hair, yes, it lacks shading, but it's also a flat puke color yellow. And personally, I think they picked the wrong choice of yellow. It needs to be a bit brighter and perhaps with hints of orange, kind of like what you see in the promotional photos. To me, the hair is the worst part of the figure. And just to throw this in there, I love her fingernails. I love how they've also painted the ring on here. It's a great job. For the pose, it's iconic. I actually love it a lot. I love the knee bend and her holding her trademark soul cage. I really think that the pose was a selling point for me. Same with the face. It's in the middle of that clueless face and the mischievous face. I just find it really pleasant. And then we have the base. Also good. It tries to capture that dark ground of the underworld. I think the part that I wish was different was that I wish that the edges were a bit sharper, or maybe that they could have a bit more shading, because from a distance, it seems like a boring gray. But overall, this is a really good figure of Ereshkigal. For me, the biggest misses are the hair and the shading, and the cape fur lacking that rigidity in the middle of it, and the base also lacking that rigidity in color. But if you already have Ishtar, I really think that this Ereshkigal would make a great companion for her. Anyway, that's all I have for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. I have a lot of boxes, so expect a lot of videos over the next month, because I'll be trying my best to pump a lot of them out through October. But until then, I hope to see you all again soon and take care.